I am no different from your son, daughter, cousin, uncle. I go through similar experiences, and my goal is to create a space where my ability to thrive does not impede your ability to thrive. The two can coexist. Oftentimes we have a fear that me sacrificing means that I am no longer able to thrive, and that comes from what I believe is a scarcity mindset. And an abundance mindset understands that there's room for all of us to thrive. In fact, when we are able to lift up the least of us, we're able to solve a lot of the issues that we typically would not be able to address, because of the fact that we are now taking care of the least of us, and the people that are better off will still remain better off, because again, now issues when you look at homelessness, when you look at poverty rates and all of that stuff, it's only because we're operating from a scarcity mindset. And so creating a place for abundance and creating a place for all of us to be able to recognize that everyone being able to live in abundance does not mean that you have to live in scarcity.
What if this is all just a dream?
My name is Daniel Chimasaro. My name is also Daniel Noel. That is my artist moniker, and it comes from my parents, my first and middle name that my parents gave me. I'm an artist based in Cincinnati. I was born and raised in Zimbabwe, and we moved here in 2006. The composition that I made is called Nomad, and it is a part of the Truth and Healing program. Being a grant recipient for the Nomad album has really been an eye-opening experience and a freeing experience because it allowed me to actually be able to put the necessary time and resources to be able to see it through. Oftentimes, I've been a musician for in the Cincinnati area since we moved here, but due to financial constraints, I could never afford to put out an album, and so it was an eye-opening experience to have been able to do. I've done smaller projects in the past, but to be able to have the funding and the resources to be able to see the whole project through in a way that I would be proud of, that's been really, really encouraging and kind of given me more wind in my sails, if you will, to push forward and kind of explore the next chapter of my artistic journey. So Nomad, the album, was inspired by my journey as an immigrant, I was originally born in Zimbabwe, and I lived half of my life there. And I just hit that marker where now I've lived more of my life in America than I have in Zimbabwe. And so the album is a result of the journey that I've been on as a person in searching of community. I come from a community-orientated people, and so when you're an immigrant, you kind of get sent straight into a cold water, if you will, like an ice bath of okay, now I got to try to find my community, and there's a lot of unfortunately there tends to be some polarized and some kind of polarized spaces, and so trying to navigate that and seeing yourself in different spaces and being oh man, I love this, but historically this is only attributed to this people group. And then also I love doing this, but I can only do that when I'm around these kind of friends. And so the process of making Nomad kind of allowed me to be able to bring together all the different people in my life that come from various different backgrounds that normally wouldn't coexist in a space. And the songs have been birthed out of that journey of okay, cool. Music became that glue, and it became that community, and it allowed me to find other like-minded people that, regardless of what your background was, you found common themes that you related to. Everyone relates to heartbreak. Everyone relates to wanting to feel like part of a community. Everyone relates to that journey and to those different things. And so Nomad, the album, was kind of inspired by that journey and the finding of community and the building of community, if you will, as a nomad. So the theme of truth and healing, as well as the album themes, when I found out about the grant, I had already been going on this self-exploratory journey. And so it was more of serendipity kind of lining up and being okay, I have all these songs and my life is about this. And then also knowing oh man, this like this now is also the open door for me to be able to walk in and then be able to like create a space where other people can experience that same healing that I'm searching for, and we can begin to heal each other in that process. So the genre of music, how I would describe it, it is a musical nomad. So I've grown up being a fan of different styles of music. Coming from Zimbabwe, we have Sungura, we have Afro jazz, we have Afro beats, and all those kind of musical genres. But then my dad was very intentional about making sure that we listened to jazz, like regular jazz. We listened to Eric Clapton. We would listen to Bill Gaither. We would also listen to Fred Hammond, Kirk Franklin, and there was always this like we would also listen to Usher, we would listen to 50 Cent, and against my parents' wishes, but it was that thing of like there was never really, Bob Marley was a staple in our household. So for me growing up in that environment, like my music taste and me as an artist has been shaped by that, because whenever I try to pigeonhole myself, I literally can't, because I will be able, like the closest that I can get is like, okay, maybe I can write 4 or 5 songs that fit just this thing. But more of the time it's like, oh man, like I really love being able to continue to explore as an artist. And so that's how I would describe it, as just like a musical nomad who like is just trying to be more one with himself, but also share music that allows people to connect, regardless of the varying backgrounds of musical taste that everyone has. So part of my musical process is like I value the down moments and the quiet periods, because that allows me to study, that allows me to take in life as it's happening. And so through that, I study like different producers. So I'll study Mark Ranson, I'll study Melee, who does a lot of Frank Ocean stuff. I'll study Quincy Jones. I'll study I'll even go into different like musical artists and different time periods, and then also that informs kind of the musical element of it. And then a part of it is like I'll read different books, or I'll take in like I'm also a visual person or a visual artist, and so cinema plays a big part in my upbringing. And because my dad also dabbled in like films, and my brother also like does that, and so that being able to watch a visually appealing story and be able to pick up on the subtext and the different stories that are being told at the same time, that's part of my process. And then when it's time for me to kind of distill all that into one, I'll also kind of look at the experiences that outside of what I'm going through, what are my friends going through? What are the conversations that we're having? What are we trying to say that we may be afraid to say at this particular moment? Or what are things that we want to say that we're not hearing other people talk about as much? And so all of that kind of plays a big role in how I make music, because for me, that's where the art is. And so I value the quiet periods, because then that allows me to study, that allows me to live, allows me to take in new inspiration. And then when it's time for me to share that and bring that to the table, then I kind of get to work and kind of just become more of a hermit in that sense, because I'm just like trying to figure out, okay, cool, how do I best present the ideas and the stories that I'm trying to tell in a way that honors the people that are involved, whilst also making sure that it's a story that's captivating enough so people can pay attention and be able to take it all in. Do I find the process of creating to be one that also is rooted in being exploratory? Yeah, I think that at the core of it, we all have these, what I believe is like we all have these pressing needs that we're trying to fill. And so for me, in my journey as an immigrant, and now being like, we've been citizens since 2016. And so that was the first time that I could actually vote in an election without worrying about like there being any like particular ramifications. And so that is a particular experience that not many people can, like the way we look at voting and the participating in the political process is very different. And so just being able to understand the things that I'm able to bring to the table because of my immigrant experience, and then also understanding that like by shrinking myself to fit in certain spaces, I'm also diluting how much, like I'm being less of service to the people around me, and I need to bring my full self. And so like creating that space where I can explore in a safe space, really, for others to explore. It encourages others to be able to do that. And so for me, that's been kind of part of the journey. That's been a huge part of the journey for myself, is just being like, okay, cool. Like, am I creating a safe enough space for me to be able to listen to conversations that my friends are having, make sure that my friends know that they can come to me and we can talk about that, talk about whatever they're processing and going through, whilst also being able to trust my friends and be able to be like, hey, like, this is a particularly unique experience that I'm going through that you may not be able to connect with, but I do trust you enough to be able to share that experience, and I trust you that you won't look at me in a different manner, and you can see the humanity in the journey that we're both on, but in the journey that I'm on as well. So how do I approach the difference between music and lyrics, or do I see them as both being part of one thing? I think they're both part of one thing. I think the lyrics, it does vary song to song. So sometimes I start a song with the lyrics and I have this idea and this theme that I want to talk about, and I need to find, I search for the musical pairing for that, or the instrumentation that's going to fit that. And so if it's oftentimes there are moments where like I have songs where it's like, okay, this is a heavier subject to deal with. How can I make it less heavy for myself as the performer? Because I am going to live with these songs and I'm going to share these songs in a lot of different spaces. You can't always do that, right? Like sometimes you have to actually sit in the discomfort, because that's where you start to have the necessary conversations. But then there's also kind of, for me, self-care is a big part of it. And so being able to understand like, yes, I can do that, but there's also moments where like, to care for myself, I need to find that balance of like, okay, maybe we pair this really dense lyrical matter with something that's more light, upbeat. The Beatles were notorious for doing some stuff like that, where they would have super like deep, meaningful lyrics, but then underneath the music, it was very light and it made it easier for people to engage. Comedy has a similar effect where you laugh at the jokes that are being told, but then it's after the joke and the laughter is worn off that you start to think about the deeper truth that surrounds all of that. And so for me, I view music and I view lyrics and instrumentation through that lens of like, okay, depending on what the song needs and where I'm at as an artist and what I'm sensing the community around me is needing, if we need just healing, which is part of the theme, like, then I'm going to make sure that the music that I'm bringing and the instrumentation, both the lyrics and the instrumentation, cater to that, because I want to create a space where people can be able to like take it in and be able to walk away lighter, because oftentimes that may not be the case. Like, we're stressed out with bills, we're stressed out with all these life emergencies, right? We go through very trying things. And so being able to create a space where people can take in that music in a way that leaves them feeling better or more encouraged. And then also sometimes when it's just like, hey, we have to talk about this, it's uncomfortable, but for our relationship to progress, we have to deal with this particular thing. And then once we've dealt with that, there's freedom on the other end of it. What would I say is the truth that's being expressed in the Nomad album? For me, as a person that is I'm Black, and I've learned that there's different meanings of Black. So coming from Zimbabwe, African Black / African American Black they're looked at differently. I don't view it that way. I think we're all part of the same package. And so for me, one of the truths that that's been freeing to kind of live in is like, there is no housing for the Black experience and me being a Black person. And so in the same way that I can share and create music that relates to people that don't look like me because they're more drawn to indie music or pop music, in the same way that doesn't put a lid on my expression as a Black artist. I can write indie rock songs, I can write R&B songs, I can write hip hop songs, because those all share different stories and different those all share different stories and different truths that I've lived in. And so that's been a freeing experience to be like, okay, I don't care how you're going to take me in as a black man. I am going to create and I'm going to create from all of the things that inspire me and all of the things that are available and all of the different muses that I have. And that's going to be, I'm going to express the truth that I need to express to free myself. And in turn, that helps free others. And so that's been the first truth that I've discovered through this process. The other truth that I've discovered is that we're all, in a sense, nomads. We're all looking for community. We're all looking for people that can connect to us, connect with us, that can build into us, that can help us heal, get to different junctures and different journeys. We all have we all have fears that we have that keep us up at night, and that we're all trying to just get through at the end of the day. And so knowing that, looking at people that look different at me, look different from me, it encourages me to like kind of be like, okay, hey, there may be things that you're struggling with right now where it's like, I'm trying to get you to understand my viewpoint of what I'm going through as a Black man in this country. But understanding that fear sometimes operates in a way that keeps us from being able to see the other person on the other side. And so kind of exploring that and being like, okay, cool, like this person is unable to see me for who I am, not because of the fear that they've been raised in, and allowing empathy to be the center of that, but also kind of being like, hey, we have to confront that. We can't just have fear be an excuse. And so the truth in that, from like, that's been part of the truth that I've lived in and kind of explored, if you will, of like, hey, like, we're humans. We have all of these different things that we go through and all of these things that we want out of life. It's best that we take care of each other, and the ability to listen and empathize and do something about it, right? Without doing stuff about it, then we continue to have the same conversations and continue to circle back to the same things. Creating space for truth in a relational capacity is necessary. What I've observed being an immigrant, now American citizen, is our fear to confront the history of our country is leading people to kind of erase the necessary history, that if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. And so that is a very foundational, like in any relationship, right? If you're with a significant other and your significant other goes, hey, you keep doing this thing that keeps hurting me. If you don't do something to fix that, they're gonna leave. And it's not their fault. You've ignored the pleas and the cries that they've been asking. In the same way, if I continue to ask for the same thing and be like, hey, I need you to see me in this way, and outside of the perceptions that you may have of me, like I need you to see the humanity in me. That creates when people are able to engage in that creates shared experiences and new relationships where we can learn from each other and we can continue to grow together. Truth and healing are connected. You need one. You can't have one without the other. And so it's important that we take in the truth in order for us to be able to get to a place of healing. If there's one thing that I want the viewers or listeners to remember about this particular conversation, is that I am no different from your son, daughter, cousin, uncle. I go through similar experiences, and my goal is to create a space where my ability to thrive does not impede your ability to thrive. The two can coexist. Oftentimes we have a fear that me sacrificing means that I am no longer able to thrive, and that comes from what I believe is a scarcity mindset. And an abundance mindset understands that there's room for all of us to thrive. In fact, when we are able to lift up the least of us, we're able to solve a lot of the issues that we typically would not be able to address, because of the fact that we are now taking care of the least of us, and the people that are better off will still remain better off, because again, now issues, when you look at homelessness, when you look at poverty rates and all of that stuff, it's only because we're operating from a scarcity mindset. And so creating a place for abundance and creating a place for all of us to be able to recognize that everyone being able to live in abundance does not mean that you have to live in scarcity.